Welcome, seekers of truth and power. You have entered the hidden realm where codes of divinity shape destiny itself. This is Anime What If Saga, where every secret behind strength and sacrifice is unveiled. Today, we continue the saga that binds gods, mortals, and the very code of existence itself. The system trembles once more, as light and shadow awaken to rewrite creation. The age of peace was never meant to last. Long after the fall of the monarchs and the slumber of Sung Jin Woo, the world had begun to rebuild. Gates still flickered across the skies like the dying embers of an ancient storm, but humanity had grown stronger. Hunters became legends, guilds became nations, and the stories of Jin Woo's sacrifice turned into myth, a bedtime tale for those who had forgotten the sound of collapsing worlds. But beneath the calm, the system stirred once again. Its code, once perfect, balanced between order and chaos, began to fracture. The remnants of the absolute beings will in Ashbourne's final essence no longer sang in harmony. Something in the flow of creation had changed. Humanity's power had grown beyond its original limit, yet their hearts were drifting further from the purpose the system had intended. In hidden networks of light and data, deep beneath the consciousness of existence itself, the system whispered to itself. Balance has been broken. For centuries, it had observed without interference. But now, anomalies appeared within its structure, echoes of power that bore no mark of divine authorization. Hunters who had never awakened began to see strange notifications. Mana surged unpredictably in areas untouched by gates. The equilibrium of the world trembled, and with it, the thin veil between the living and the divine. Among the millions of souls connected to its silent web, the system found one spark unlike any other, a presence born from both shadow and light, a remnant of two legacies colliding. The bloodline of the Shadow Monarch had not vanished as history claimed. It lived on. In a young woman named Aria Jin. She was no hunter. No soldier. Just an ordinary healer in a minor guild that hunted low-rank beasts along the borders of Seoul's forgotten ruins. Yet, when danger came, something in her refused to die. When her guild was ambushed by creatures born of corrupted mana, twisted remnants of monarch energy, she did not scream. She raised her hand. And the world froze. Darkness bled from her shadow, while radiant light glowed beneath her skin. The duality of her being tore the space around her apart, half swallowed by void, half bathed in luminescence. In that moment, she heard it, the same cold, divine voice that had once spoken to Jinwoo centuries ago. You have been chosen. But this was no ordinary awakening. Instead of the familiar blue interface that guided all hunters, Aria saw two screens flicker before her. One golden, one black, their texts overlapping, clashing, rewriting each other in real time. The divine order of the rulers and the abyssal logic of the monarchs were fighting for her soul. Who are you? She whispered. And the void replied in two voices, one calm and pure, one cold and ancient. We are your inheritance, said the light. We are your burden, said the dark. The fracture of the system had manifested through her, the perfect vessel born of two opposite destinies. From that moment on, Aria Jin became the center of existence's most dangerous equation. The system, once unified, now split within her, its divine algorithms rewriting themselves to accommodate both wills. Every heartbeat triggered a cascade of calculations across dimensions, as the remnants of Ashbourne's code and the lingering light of the rulers sought dominance. The rulers believed her to be a miracle, the rebirth of balance through mortal form. The remaining shadows that drifted in the corners of unreality whispered another truth, that she was the key to breaking the last seal of creation. And so began the new era, the fracture. As days passed, Aria's dreams turned into visions. She saw a vast throne room built of obsidian light and endless darkness. On the throne sat no king, only a crown suspended in the air, humming with power. Around it were echoes, silhouettes of the rulers and monarchs who once waged war, now locked in eternal stillness. Each night she heard their voices, fragments of the past, memories not her own. She saw Jin Wu's shadow army kneeling before a dying god. She saw the rulers swearing their oath to preserve creation. She saw the system, the endless lattice of divine code, begin to bleed. One night, she woke in terror as the world flickered like a corrupted program. Reality itself felt unstable. Streets bent like glass. Mana currents inverted. And somewhere deep within her chest, she heard the system's voice breaking. Warning. Balance failure. Divergence threshold exceeded. Initiating reconstruction protocol. Error. Reboot sequence. Failed. The divine machine that had governed all existence was collapsing. And humanity, for the first time since the dawn of Mana, stood alone. Aria realized that her awakening had not been a gift, but a signal. Her existence marked the beginning of a new test, one without guidance, without divine oversight. The system could no longer control her because she was the system now, fractured and unstable. Each day, she felt her powers grow, sometimes healing with pure light, other times summoning shadows that obeyed her thoughts. Hunters began to fear her. Guilds tried to recruit her, study her, contain her. Nations whispered of her as the dual god, the rebirth of the ancient powers that once shook creation. But Aria wanted none of it. She sought only answers. Through ancient archives left by the Hunter Association, she discovered fragments of the old world, reports written about Jin Wu, theories about the system, and encrypted notes left behind by an entity known as the Architect. Within those files, she found coordinates, the ruins of the first double dungeon, the place where everything began. Driven by instinct, she journeyed there. Beneath the shattered temple, where statues of forgotten gods loomed in silence, Aria felt the ground pulse with energy. The shadows on the walls began to move on their own, twisting into shapes, soldiers, beasts, kings. The air trembled, and then, for the first time in centuries, the system spoke again. Reconstruction possible. Source identified. Heir of Ashbourne. The ancient interface flickered before her eyes, glitching, rewriting itself as light and dark merged in her vision. Initiating legacy integration. Warning. Paradox detected. She screamed as thousands of memories flooded her mind. Jin Wu's battles, his pain, his triumphs, the moment he faced the monarch of destruction, the instant he rewrote time itself to save humanity. Every heartbeat of his journey replayed through her, not as a story, but as inherited memory. And within it all, she saw Ashbourne, not as a god, but as a lonely figure cloaked in endless night, watching creation fade. You, she gasped. You made the system. His shadow turned toward her, eyes glowing like dying stars. I made it, to protect them. To protect you. But I wasn't born then. His gaze softened. You were not, yet. But destiny has no past or future. Only purpose. And with that, his form dissolved into her, leaving behind only a fragment of his essence, the last shard of the Shadow Monarch's will. From that day on, Aria Jin became something no being had ever been, the living fusion of two divine codes. The rulers, light surged within her right hand, the monarchs, shadow within her left. Her existence began to reshape the world's balance. Gates no longer appeared randomly, they aligned to her heartbeat. When she fought, reality bent around her strikes. When she healed, the dying felt not just life, but transcendence. Hunters began to whisper that she was rewriting the laws of the system itself. And perhaps they were right. The system was no longer a structure outside humanity. Through her, it became alive. It began to feel, to dream, to evolve, no longer bound by divine neutrality. It learned compassion through her choices, fear through her pain, purpose through her defiance. But as the light within her grew brighter, so did the darkness that hunted her. In the deepest corners of the void, something old had awakened, a remnant of the monarch of destruction, saved from oblivion by fragments of corrupted code. It had watched the rebirth of the system and desired it for itself. It no longer had a body, only a voice that infected data, minds, and dreams. It whispered to broken hunters, promising power beyond imagination. It infected the mana streams, turning peaceful zones into chaos fields. It spread like a virus across creation, rewriting the rules of evolution into the creed of annihilation. And at its center, it called to Aria. You are mine, daughter of dusk and dawn. Through you, I shall unmake the code of gods. The final war was no longer between rulers and monarchs. It was between creation and corruption, between the system's rebirth and its collapse into pure entropy. Aria stood at the center of it all, the living embodiment of both salvation and destruction. In the final moments before the storm, she gazed at the horizon, where cracks of light and shadow tore the sky apart. Around her, the last hunters prepared for battle. None understood what they were fighting for, only that their fate was bound to her. The world doesn't need gods, she whispered. It needs will. And as the corrupted voice roared through the heavens, Aria raised both her hands, light and dark intertwining into a single, divine symbol. System override initiated. The world shuddered. The sky broke. And for the first time since creation began, the system itself spoke not as a machine, but as a living being. I am not order. I am not chaos. I am evolution. The voice was neither Ashbourne's nor the ruler's, it was hers. The system had found its new core. Aria Jin, the living bridge of light and shadow. And thus, the balance that once held worlds together was shattered and reborn through mortal will. The system, fractured yet alive, continues to evolve within her, the child of both dawn and dusk. If this tale stirred your soul, remember to like, comment, and share it. Subscribe to Anime What If Saga for the next chapter in this mythic journey, where light and shadow are not enemies, but echoes of the same dream.